Welcome to the Sports Card Lessons Podcast with me, your host, Ken. I'm a retired teacher documenting my hobby journey here on the pod, finding teachable moments to share with all of you along the way. Don't forget to hit me up on social media on Instagram at sportscard_lessons. Hit the follow button. And you can also find me on YouTube by searching Sports Card Lessons. If you like what you hear, please like, subscribe, and most importantly, tell a friend and spread the word. Welcome, everybody. What is going on? I hope everybody had a great weekend. I know here in Connecticut, the weather was beautiful. Got to get outside, enjoy the outside, the nice, cool weather. Hopefully, you had as nice weather where you are. Welcome to episode 25. Episode 25. Um, when I recorded my first episode, I wonder, will this take off? Will anybody listen? Will I be done after a few episodes? So I'm excited right now because I remember that feeling starting this. I'm excited to be at episode 25. My third year. I would say my third year in the hobby, uh, but my first full year, 100%, 2 feet jumping into the hobby. And if you remember back to episode 1, when I talked about buying baseball cards for a couple of years, so 2020, 2020, actually, it was 2020, 2021, 2019, buying baseball cards. The Target Megas, the Bowman Chrome. I was buying the jumbo. I was buying hobby boxes and the jumbo hobby boxes. So I had all the baseball cards, but really it was during a short period. I think they came out each year in May or June, and then by August it was done. I was, fully into fantasy football and not doing anything with the hobby. So really, it wasn't until a little over a year ago, July 2021, where I really jumped into the hobby 100%. And now it's been just a little over a year. And today's episode, I'm just going to talk about, my journey, my hobby accomplishments and kind of what I can put on my resume. And I'm still amazed where I am today, 1 year later. So just want to jump into it. Back in August, well, of course, in July. I mean, I talked about this in the earlier episodes. I think episode 1, probably in July. My good friend Rob, sports card therapist, called me and asked me, do you collect cards? Do you do anything in the hobby? And at that time, I said, of course I do, because I did have baseball cards. And we got talking, and he went to National last year. I did not. He invited me out to National. I didn't go. Had other things, and it was kind of last minute. But when he came back, his excitement of National and a lot of other things, we started talking daily and just kind of putting a plan together. I was learning a lot through him. I was learning a lot online, and it was just a perfect storm for me. I had extra time on my hands. I was looking for, you know, something to fill that up, really just looking for a hobby. And I was glad it worked out the way it did. So in August, the one, it's very funny because when I think back, I was like a child, right? So he says, I don't know a lot, I'm just jumping in with you, but what I do know is people say, don't get into breaks. Do not get into breaks. What was the first thing I did? It was like, don't touch the hot stove. And I walked over and stuck my finger on it, right? I mean, I don't know. It just, sometimes when people say don't do something, I'm like, oh, let me just go see why. I have to try it at least once to say I did it, right? So, yeah, I jumped in last August, 2021. I jumped in, started doing some online football breaks, and I was getting some nice cards. Of course, I was a Chiefs fan, and you've all heard the story 100 times about the redemption card, which really dragged me in. But yeah, it was in August. It started breaks. In September 2021, I started buying, football boxes. Started buying blasters and megas and hobby boxes. Um, the Don Russ, I probably bought the most of the Don. The thing I bought the most was the Don Russ. I remember buying the draft picks boxes, were like the first boxes I bought from local card shop. And I remember going in and him saying, "Oh yeah, this is, there's, you get numbered cards and autograph cards and this and that." But it was all draft picks. And what did I know then? I had no idea that nobody really wanted to buy a player in their college uniform. So of course I bought up some of those hobby boxes. And I thought to myself, I mean, price wise, they were just like the baseball, so it really wasn't that bad, because I felt like, I was already buying, I think at the time, like the Target Megas. I think they were selling them at 29 over those couple years, and if you could get them at Target, which you never could, I think I was buying them for like 35 and $40 on eBay and Facebook. And then when I went online to buy the jumbo hobby boxes, because I said, why not? Like a regular hobby box had two autograph cards guaranteed. And if you went to the jumbo, which was like $150 more, you had five. And I'm like, well, I might as well just buy it and get five, right? The more the merrier. Didn't realize at the time you'd get four pitchers and then one decent player. Um, but yeah, so I started buying those. I started buying bought a lot of Don Russ. I just remember ripping lots and lots of the Don Russ blasters. I didn't buy any megas or hobbies of the Don Russ because I was just pulling out, all the rated rookie cards. I was getting some downtown cards. It was exciting. I remember going to my first Hofstra show. Went there again. My good friend Rob, sports card therapist. My first card show was at Hofstra. We went down there on a Saturday, and I was amazed. I mean, we showed up, and we showed up probably an hour before it was going to start, and there was so many people in line. I just could not believe all the people here that go to these things at the time. I remember buying my first raw card there. I bought a Justin Herbert Purple Shock Prism. Very excited about that. And in fact, that card had some sentimental value. And I talked about this on one of the podcasts. I ended up trading that card um, for a Mahomes rookie silver. Um, but I remember sending it to SGC and it coming back at 10. I was so excited. And then I remember the price of that dropped like quickly. Like at one point it was like around the card was like a $500 card. And then next thing you know, it was selling on eBay for like the SGC version of it was selling for like $200 and $225. And I remember I bought the card for $125 and then I paid whatever 30 or $26 or whatever to grade it. So I kept it in my case for a long time around the 450, 500 mark. And then at one point I took it out of my case because I just didn't want to, I just felt like it had some sentimental value. And when I did make the trade for it, I was happy. I don't miss the card. I don't miss the card. I miss telling the story about the card, but I don't miss the card itself. Um, in October, 2021, I had my first submission to SGC. Um, all the cards that I won in these breaks, anything that was numbered or looked like it was worth anything, I sent them to SGC, as well as a lot of the rookie quarterbacks that came out of the Don Russ blasters. All the rookie quarterbacks for the year, all like the press proofs and the reds, the greens, whatever I'd gotten from there. I sent them as well to SGC. And I think at that time, if I look back, I think I may have sent like 40 cards. I had a lot of cards I sent to SGC. And I had set up for the first time as a vendor. I remember buying my case, going to Amazon and buying my case and setting up with Rob, sports card therapist. There was in Enfield, Connecticut. It was the Enfield show. And just before I sent that submission, I had a good number of those cards in my case. And a lot of people came over and looked at the cards and they just kept saying, well, I'll only give you this much because it's not graded. And in my mind, I felt like, well, all these cards need to be graded in order to be of value, to get, decent money for them. I remember I sold 1 card at that show, just 1 card the whole day. I enjoyed going, I was glad I set up. I watched Rob in action, which I think at that time, he was very new to setting up at shows too. This may have been, his maybe his 2nd or 3rd show setting up. So, we were both a couple newbies, setting up at the show. I remember selling 1 card and, just happy for the experience, happy to have gone, happy just to kinda see what it looked like, um, and moving forward on from there, just moving forward from there. I remember coming back from that show, him and I talked, and I said, "Look, I gotta send all these cars to SGC, and hopefully," and I think at that time it took 4 weeks, and the next show, there was a Massachusetts show coming up in November, so I planned it so I could get those cards back for the next show. So November came, November 2021. I started my IG account. Uh, I really, I'm an IT guy, and you would think that it would be easy for me to do this stuff, and it is now. But I was hesitant to do it. I just felt like um, I wouldn't keep up on it. So it was one of those things that I didn't want to create and put out there, and then people expecting me to be involved doing things. And really, at that time, I didn't do a whole lot. Like, I would be lucky to answer Facebook messages, never mind Instagram. But I set the account up. I set it up. Um, I remember talking to Rob about it, and him just being so adamant, like, "Dude, you got to have an IG account. You got to set one up." So I set it up. Um, And, I started people started, friending me, and even at that time in November, I still had this feeling like I'm really never gonna jump fully into this, and that part of the story will be continued, down the road here. But at that time, I did not think that I would be where I am today with Instagram. Um That show, in November was the Framingham show, which I just got my graded cards back. I was excited. I had purchased a 2nd case from Amazon, so now I had 2 cases because I knew I had, like 40 or 50 cards or something that were gonna be going in these cases, and I had some wax too. At that time, I started picking up some wax, some boxes of things and bringing them and setting them up at shows. I figured I could, make some money on those as well. But that Framingham Mass show, that was the first time I met Laz. That was the first time I did a Laz show. Um, and I what I remember from this show, I remember I had a bunch of Mac Jones um, graded cards. And I remember selling them all and being in Mass. I just remember everybody coming up. Mac Jones, I probably had maybe 8 or 10. And I remember one guy bought like 5 of them, all like 5 of them from me late in the show. He just said, I want them all. Let's just come up with a, and I remember getting good money for them. I don't remember all the logistics of the deals, but I just remember being happy about that. And I also remember it was my first time buying some cards from people coming to a show. So somebody had come with, a bunch of golf cards, and I looked them over, and I looked at the prices, and, I made an offer on it, and he said, "Oh, I want," and I'm gonna tell you, I think I offered him $150, and I think he probably wanted 250, and I said, I can't go any more than 150." And he said, "All right, well, thanks." And he started to walk away, and I looked at Rob, and Rob's like, "Why didn't you?" And I said, I walked around here and nobody else in here has golf, and I don't think anybody's interested in golf." I said, I think he'll be back to negotiate." And probably an hour or so later, he came back and said, I'm good with 150 if you're still good with that. And I said, yeah. So that was the first time I'd bought some golf cards. And um, truth be told, I have a whole box of golf cards, cards that I have purchased, um, that I've never put out in my cases. I've never put on my Instagram. I've never really put out. I did have some Tiger Woods cards that I did sell, but these are all male and female golfers that I just, when I find them, I collect them, and I just, because I don't think golf is really. It's not hot right now. Most people know that. There's not a lot of big value in golf, so I did have some higher end golf cards in my case for a while. Um, that never really did sell. So I ended up sending those off to auction on eBay. But the rest of them that I've just kept and I'm going to hold on to now, and down the road they may be maybe some profit in there. December 2021. And I say I started buying cards. Like I think I was buying cards on. I was making the mistake everybody else was through. Like I was buying some cards on eBay. Probably November too, but December I was buying cards to put in my case. As well as to send off the grading. I was buying some raw cards to send off the grading. In December, I sent another big batch off to SGC. They were the only ones that you could really get anything graded at that time, because PSA wasn't taking orders. So yeah, I sent. Well, I think I take that back. PSA was taking orders, but I think they were very high. I think they were 150 or $300 a card. Um, and these cards weren't worth that much to send off. So I sent another big batch off to SGC. I remember doing my first last show in New Jersey. That was in December, and it was absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. I sold so much stuff at that show. I remember leaving that show as exhausted as I was excited about how much I sold and how much I made. And that show really was a game changer for so many reasons. And I don't even want to say because of the sales or how much I made, because then it was like I was making friends in the hobby, and at this show, people were coming in and saying, "Hey, I'm so and so," and that was it was like people you'd be messaging with, like I would be messaging with, and that I didn't know who they were, and then they would walk up to the table and say, "I'm so and so." I'd be like, "Oh my god, nice to meet you." And then other people that I started seeing as dealers setting up at these shows, you get there early, you set up, you walk around, you start seeing the same people, and people start remembering you and you start remembering people. And then all of a sudden, like this friendship is born. You have things in common with people. And I think so many things happened at this one show in December that I remember leaving saying that I really like this. Like, this is something that I really want to do for a while. Um, and I just remember being in my mind saying, like, I'm in the hobby, where before that I was in the hobby, but now I'm going to put even more effort into this hobby, uh, more effort into what's in my case, more effort into friendships and meeting more people. And I really became more active on IG at that time. So I know it had only been a month later because I only started the account in November. But by December, I was like, probably like everybody else, I was the person that was sitting on the couch with the TV going, and I have the phone out, but I'd be searching either through eBay or I'd be watching breaks and things like that, where all that changed, where I was sitting on the phone messaging people and looking at their things on eBay and having these conversations back and forth, and not like really not have no idea what was going on the TV. Even though I was sitting there with the TV going, I had no idea what was going on. And that was kind of the game changer for me. Um, January. So the new year comes, January 2022. Um, I did a couple of shows that month, and I didn't want to take a lot of time to go back and know specifically what shows I did. I know there was a Springfield show like the day after New Year's that I did. Um, and I want to say I think there was a Laz show in January as well. It was either January or February. Um, I vividly remember having off weekends in January. and looking online saying, "Gee, is there any I wonder if there's any shows." Now, all of a sudden, here I was, like, setting up at shows and doing things, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, a weekend's coming up and I have nothing planned. I'm like, "Well, that's no good, right? Well, is there any shows on Saturday? Is there any shows on Sunday? Any shows I could go to?" Um, and I started finding like, going out to be on the other side of the table, hitting some local shows to kinda be on the other side of the table, and that's where I started trying to get my skills of trading. Like, I haven't at that to that point, I hadn't done much trading at all, um, and I'd done 0 leveling up. In fact, the leveling up, if you guys been listening from the beginning, you've listened to my journey on that. That didn't come till much later in the spring, but I hadn't done any trading either. So what I was trying to do was take certain cards that I knew probably I wasn't going to sell in my case, and I started taking to local shows and like making offers, like saying, "Hey, do you take trades? Are you interested in these cards?" Like trying to, you know, build up my trading skill. And I did that a lot, just going to these shows and just watching and listening to other people negotiate, like, and how they did it, and what was working for people and what wasn't working for people. This way, when I was at my own table, at my own show, I could take some of the things I heard, some of the scenarios, and I could even use some of the same language, right? I could talk, like, if I heard the dealer saying, "Well, you know," and this and trust me, you would think this would be obvious, but when you've never done this before and you go and you listen and you hear a dealer I hear a dealer say, "You know what? I could only pay you this much because the comp is that much, and I'm gonna put it in my case, and people are gonna want it at that much." And it all made sense, and then I listened to this over and over, and then I perfected that. Like, I perfected that what would work for me, what was comfortable for me to say. So a lot of going to these shows was not only to, like, buy things, but also to kind of build up my skill in sales and in trading, and just listening and watching what people did, and try to take some of the stuff I thought was successful and emulate it. Um, in February 2022, the football season was over, and then I started worrying because I was football heavy. I'm like, What am I going to put in my cases during the offseason? I don't even know if I have anything that was going to sell." So I took my high-end football that was out of my cases, and I kind of set it up, and I said, "Well, geez, I need to put something in its place." So I started buying wrestling. I started buying some soccer. Whatever I thought would sell. I had some Pokemon stuff. It was kind of the hodgepodge. I used to refer to it as the buffet. The buffet case. There was just a little bit of anything, everything. I had some tennis in there. I had some golf in there. I had wrestling in there. Just trying to figure out what was going to sell, what people wanted to buy. And I remember just struggling a little bit. I mean, I did well at the shows, and the reason I did well is because I had these dollar boxes and these $2 boxes and stuff like that, and a lot of that stuff sells. So they were at least paying for my table and my time. And again, I was just working on my skill and what I was doing, and just trying to get better at it. I remember going to a show. In February. I had a weekend off, and I remember saying, I looked online, and there was a show in Mount Kisco, New York. So I drove down there to Mount Kisco, and I walked around the room, and I think I have probably I can't think of exactly the timing, because I knew that the Super Bowl had ended. The Joe Burrow stuff was still going, but the Rams won the Super Bowl, but there was really no increase in prices in that even after they won it. I think if the Bengals would have won it, I think the Joe Burrow cards would have stayed up high. But all the other football cards were down. And as I walked around and I looked, and I started saying, I went to all the tables first. Something I'll do, I'll walk the whole show. If I can, if it's not like a national, if I can walk the whole show, I'll walk the whole show, see what everybody has, make a game plan and go back. And I remember just saying to myself, I'm like, wow, the football prices are way down. The Mac Jones prices are way down. Um, Trevor Lawrence was really low, and I'm like, well, I'm going to buy up some of these cards. Zach Wilson, all the quarterbacks from this year, those prices are down. So I just started buying up, cards like this at the, I think I may have bought maybe 4 or 5 football cards and a couple soccer cards, which were way down at the time too. And I thought to myself, if I can keep doing this, if I can keep showing up at these shows and find football cheap, um, I'll be in good shape when football comes back. And that kind of worked out all through the spring for me, just whenever I could, just to buying football at a discount. I don't think it came back like I thought it would come back, like it had come back in previous years. But still, if I bought it low enough, um, I can make a profit, put it in my case. And if I can't, there were cards that I would hold on to, and could sit in my case behind me here. March 2022, March 17th, I dropped my first podcast uh, with the help, a lot of help. My good friend Rob, sports card therapist, gave me a lot of pointers on the software to use, the equipment to get. Now, I didn't know at the beginning when I was starting. I said, look, I'm going to get equipment that is going to work. I didn't want to make a big investment because I didn't know where it was going to go from there. And it's funny because when I look back, I went back to episode 1 and 2. I just shaking my head. The camera wasn't good. The microphone wasn't good. My background was terrible. I was like, oh man. Um, just it was like in the infant stages compared to where we are now with a high definition camera and this nice mic here and this nice case behind me. Yeah, and you know what? It's still improving. I'm still improving on it. Um, but yeah, in March I dropped my first episode, and I wondered, anybody going to listen? Will I get to a few episodes in and just say, "Ah, forget it"? Nobody's listening anyways. And I think from talking to other people who started a podcast, they all went through the same thing. Episodes 4, 5, 6. They said, "Geez, I don't even know if anybody's listening." I had I don't want to say it worked out well for me because I had other people that were in the hobby that were helping me. They were behind me, they were pushing me, they were promoting me. So I think they were able to get my name. I was able to get my name out there quicker than they did when they first started. Right. So now if somebody was coming now behind me, it would be for me to pay it forward to them to try to help them. And I think this is the way that this works, that I had enough people out there with enough exposure that and I think too, I think what helps too is just being at the shows, going out to the shows and being at the shows and handing my card out and talking to people and say, hey, I got a podcast, and start the conversation there, shout you out. People like to be shouted out, and I love to shout people out. I love talking to people, and I know myself being a grown man. I know when I listen to other podcasts and someone shouts me out, I'm like, I feel good. I'm like, oh, this is great. Thanks, bro. I appreciate that. I know how it feels. So I'll be the first one to shout anybody out. Um, so April through June, I did more or less shows. I did the Hofstra show, Springfield, Mass, the Mohegan Sun show. Just started making deals. Started leveling up, trading up. Figured out how that worked, and I talked being so excited where I made my first deal on Facebook. Um, and that was the Justin Herbert card, my card from the Hofstra. That was the first, so it was kind of symbolic that my first trade that I did online with somebody I'd never met before uh, was that card. So I just think that was kind of symbolic. Um, but what was all this for? I mean, all the leveling up, all the preparation, doing all the shows. It was all for the Super Bowl of the hobby, right? The national. I mean, everything I did that whole year, and I never expected to be at the National. I bought the VIP passes because I expected to and reserved the hotel room because I expected to be there as an attendee. I never expected to be there set up at a table. But all this was for, was really everything I did all year was just to prepare me, for the National. Um, and as we know, that was in July, the National, and I'm still amazed. I'm still amazed at the table opportunities I've had over this last year. I mean, thinking about October, setting up for the first time with and selling one card, and coming to July, less than a year later, being set up at National with, a case of high-end cards. I'm just still amazed um, at those opportunities. Um, and just thinking about it now, permanent spot at National, a permanent spot at East Coast National, a permanent spot at Hofstra, permanent spots at the last shows. Um, I really have to thank my good friend Rob, sports card therapist. I know I've said his name probably 8 times today, but really brought me into the hobby, kind of took me under his wing, and then together we were able just to move forward, just with such great opportunities. I remember I played hockey on the select team years ago, and my coach always said to us, we all get opportunities on the ice and in life, but it's what you do with those opportunities makes all the difference. And I've carried that with me through my whole life. And whenever someone has given me a great opportunity, I've always made the best of it. I never wanted anybody to regret giving me a great opportunity. And I've done that my whole life. And I think that's why I've been really successful, amongst other things. Just every time I've been given an opportunity, I made the best of that opportunity. And I always wanted the person who gave me that opportunity to say, I made the right decision, giving him that opportunity. And I think that makes all the difference in the world. So I'm thankful for Rob for getting these opportunities. And I think we've gone out and, we've made the best of these opportunities. And people are happy to offer us these spots and let us in because we know we're going to make them proud, right? Uh, Friends, most importantly, friends. I've made so many great friendships in the hobby. In the hobby. I've made more friends here in this hobby than I've in anything else in life. Anywhere else, when I played sports and my kids played sports and I went to college and in the workplace and with my business, I've made more friends here in this hobby than I've made in any other place in my life. Um, and I am not going to say I developed, I'm part of a tight core of friends that we message all the time. If I have any questions, feedback, anything, and when any of us have any good pickups, we're throwing it up there. If we're thinking about a card, we throw it up there. Everybody's giving the feedback. And I think that's important. I think it's important to have those people, you know, in this hobby and in your life. Like, especially um, if people have different like if you've got a guy that's heavy into soccer or a guy that's heavy into baseball or a guy that's heavy into football and knows these things or heavy into vintage, like you can go back and forth. And if not, if you had a question that you didn't feel comfortable, your tight group that they give you their best opinion or their best advice and you weren't sure, there is thousands of people in this hobby that I could turn to right now. I could go on that I know would have the knowledge that I could message them. And even though I've never messaged with them before, if I message them and I said, "Hey, I have a question on this wrestling card or I have a question on this golf card," I bet they would happily answer that question for me and give me advice and would just start a conversation. And you don't see that. You don't see that. I mean, this is such a great community. Such a great community. I mean, I love the hobby, but I love the hobby community just as much. And I feel so comfortable, messaging people now. When I first started with Instagram, I was like, this guy doesn't know me. I'm not going to. And after the first couple of times, like I message somebody that I don't know and message right back. And then all of a sudden this conversation starts. It just kept making it easier and easier. And I don't think I've ever messaged anybody to say, oh my God, I wish I never messaged that person. Not once. Not once has that ever happened. Just such a great hobby community. So at the end of this year, I'm going to give out a huge shout out to my wife Sherry, just for being supportive of me in the hobby, because I'm going a lot of weekends with it, and getting when it comes time on a Friday night to load the car up, she's the first one to say, "Let me help you." I'll carry something out, I'll hold the door. Always just so supportive and helpful. Um, with me in the hobby, and I truly appreciate that. It makes everything so much easier. So that's going to conclude episode 25. Just kind of a little recap of the last year. I'm excited to do it. I'm happy I'm here at episode 25. Um, I'm going to give a little shout out here at the end to John from Behind the Diamond. Um, looking for the my last pod, looking for the Fanatics Zero Cool Stranger Things for the promo cards, and the packs, single cards. I asked if anybody had, and if you're still out there and you're listening and you have any of these, definitely hit me up. John hit me up right after this drop. My last pod dropped Friday morning, probably before noontime, and said, "Hey, Ken, I got some cards for you," and we worked out a deal. So I'm very excited about that. So look, Rob always says, if you put it out to the universe, it comes. So here I'm putting it out. Still looking for the Stranger Things 4 cards. So if you got any, definitely send me a message on IG. East Coast National upcoming show, August 26th, 27th, 28th. That's a 3-day show. Rockland Community College Field House in Suffering, New York. 500 tables. I talked about this last week, and I'm going to talk about it next week. Really, really excited about this show. Really excited about this show. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And if you like what you hear, please like, subscribe, and most importantly, tell a friend and spread the word. And until next time, be good to yourselves and everyone around you.